Wow, it's been a while. My last video was just over 2 weeks ago, but it's great to be back. That long break was because I was in Europe. I was there for exactly 2 weeks. It was really a trip to see family and explore cities. But being the enthusiast I am, I couldn't help but visit 3 new parks while I was there. These parks were Holiday Park, Plopsaland De Panne, and Walygator Park. All 3 of these parks were very different from anything we have in the States, and both Holiday Park and Walygator Park were literally on the fly because I realized the hotel was like 20 minutes away. Anyway, this is going to be a complete wrap of my European trip. Obviously there were some parks I wish I could have visited, but these are the ones I could, and I feel I have a pretty good overall taste for the European theme park. In today's video, I'll analyze and rank the new parks I visited while in Europe, and compare European and American theme parks in general. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. Let's dive in. First, I'll start with individually discussing and reviewing each of the 3 parks. Then I'll dive into the European-American theme park comparisons. The first park I visited was Holiday Park. This was totally on the fly when I realized this park was super close to my hotel, but I only had about an hour and a half here, which probably impacted my experience. Obviously, I was most concerned with getting as many rides as possible on the park's infamous Intamin mega coaster, Expedition G-Force. I really don't do reviews on this channel, but here are my thoughts. I really appreciate the T-bars, but the ride-offs staple like crazy, and these come down very hard during the ride. You rocket up the 170-foot lift hill and fly over the twisted drop. One of my biggest regrets with this coaster is not ever experiencing it in the back row. I got about 8 rides, but most of them were in the front or in the front half of the train. This drop really doesn't do much for me, and maybe in the back it's great, but I really didn't get any airtime or good forces. The valley after the first drop blasts you with positive G-forces and speed, and then you fly up a fantastic airtime hill, which will eject you out of your seat. Then the ride hits a series of overbanks and smaller airtime hills before hitting the brakes. I'm a big fan of this ride, but I don't think it's as great as many people make it out to be. It's like a shorter, slower, and less good version of Millennium Force. Don't get me wrong, this is a great ride, and currently my number 8 coaster. Anyway, the other big coaster in Holiday Park is Skyscream, a Skyrocket 2. This thing was not impressive at all. The launches were weak, and the top hat was just trimmed to death. Probably the worst Skyrocket 2 I've ridden, but I'm just glad it didn't have comfort colors. Overall, Holiday Park is charming and has lots of theming, but in general, I just got a weird feeling from this place. Maybe it's because it was super empty, or maybe it's because of the employees. The employees here were just not that great, and there are probably some good ones, but I just didn't have the best experience. Overall, Expedition G-Force is great, the rest of the park, not so much. Moving on, without question, the best park I visited, this was Plopsaland De Panne, and this place is fantastic. The Plops Hotel surrounds the park, and everything just looks great. You walk in, and there's a fountain and beautiful buildings. The star here is Ride to Happiness, and guys, I'll tell you, that name fits. This ride is beyond incredible, and easily one of the best roller coasters in the world. Quick review. This Monk Extreme Spinner starts with a slow-mo JoJo roll out of the station, and this thing is just so disorientating and gives incredible hang time. Perfect way to start the ride. Then you have what surprised me as a decently forceful launch. You just start spinning like crazy, and you fly up the Outer Bank top hat. This element is great, and if you're in the middle cars, you'll spin and face the lake, which is incredible. The ejector airtime off this element is great, and you enter a fantastic cobra roll and vertical loop, all while spinning. You then hit the second launch and enter my personal favorite element of the ride. I'm not really sure what to call it, but it's similar to the flying snake dive on Storm Runner at Hershey Park, and this thing is incredible. Personal note here, I'm a gymnast, and flips are kind of second nature to me, and it's just amazing to flip and twist on this ride so high up with great speed. I'm almost like, okay, well that was a back full, here's a front half, kinda like that, so it's fun. After this, you enter a turn and a double up, which gives great airtime, and then you hit the brakes. This is one of those rides where every seat is completely different, and every seat is great. This ride is so great, in fact, it's one of the best I've ever ridden. I'm still struggling to rank it because of how different it is from my top 2, but this ride is at least number 3 and quite possibly number 1, but I don't think I'll go that far. Ride to Happiness is absolutely incredible, and if you are in Europe, you have to experience this thing, no doubt one of the greatest coasters on Earth. Enough fawning. The Gerstlauer Eurofighter Anubis has a really punchy first launch, and is a terrible headbanging machine after that. Heidi the Ride, it's a fun, smaller scale GCI, but I was really not that impressed. Overall, Plopsaland is a fantastic park with a great atmosphere and quite possibly the best coaster on Earth. Last, and certainly least, Walygator Park. This thing almost felt straight out of a spoof movie. It kind of felt like National Lampoon's Vacation, just the park was actually open, and it's not just similar because of the name. This place is weird, and kind of sketchy, not gonna lie. I couldn't really enjoy the coasters here because I was too scared the track would crack or the restraint would open. Obviously that didn't happen, but this place has a surprisingly not that bad Vekoma corkscrew, a wooden coaster which was closed, and a massive B&M invert, the Monster. I literally never even heard of this place, but I saw it on Google Maps and thought it was some kind of fair, but then I saw a massive B&M invert and my jaw fell in my lap. Anyway, quick review. I only rode 2 things here, those being the corkscrew and the invert. I rode each once because I thought if I rode it more, it statistically increased my chances of dying, so 1 was good for me. This corkscrew I thought would knock out all of my brain cells, but it only knocked out a few, which was a pleasant surprise. Obviously this ride is a flaming pile of garbage, but I wanted the credit so I did it. The reason I came was because of the Monster. This thing is huge and very intimidating, mostly because it looked like it was going to fall apart. Anyway, I was lucky enough to be assigned to the back row for my single ride. Anyway, this thing enters a massive twisted drop and into a super intense vertical loop and then a whippy 0G roll. I won't bore you with all of the elements because it's a long ride, but overall, this thing was actually pretty good. I got off relieved I survived, but I admire this thing's furious pacing and relentless intensity. Definitely one of the best inverts I've been on. Overall, Walygator Park was a unique experience, but don't go out of your way for this place at all. It's a really weird park, and it's so random I even went. My experience at all of these parks was great for the most part, but how do they stack up against the similar parks in America? Well, they don't, I'll explain. Or it really depends on your opinion. These parks are more charming, but they don't bring the coasters like the typical Six Flags or Cedar Fair park of that level. That could be said for almost all European parks, maybe with the exception of Energylandia. They all have a few decent coasters and nothing after that. It really depends if you value a more streamlined kind of corporate feeling experience with lots of coasters, or a more down-to-earth, more pretty and relaxing experience. It's kind of like with hotels. Do you prefer a more septic, bland but clean, streamlined experience of a chain hotel like a Hilton, or would you rather go to a charming family-owned hotel that has a hair in the bed and a spider in the bathroom, but just has more character? It really comes down to personal preference, but for me, American parks are just the best. Anyway, long-winded video, but it's great to be back. Thank you all so much for watching, and please consider subscribing. I'll see you all in the next video.